thank you, Sergio, and the Global Legal Tech Hub for organizing this roundtable, in which we're going to talk about legal knowledge management. But let me first please introduce to the people on the table. Let me start with Alejandro Perez. He started his career as a lawyer and then worked on product management and innovation roles for LexisNexis and Thomson Reuters for more than 15 years. Alejandro is currently supporting the Italian law firm Chiomenti in adopting legal tech solutions and trying to solve many of the challenges that we will soon discuss. We also have today with us Bruce Brody, who is the Chief Technology Officer of Deloitte Legal, responsible for technologically enabling and optimizing Deloitte's legal service delivery, as well as developing bespoke digital legal solutions for clients. Bruce previously led a technology and legal operation and process optimization consulting team at a major international law firm. Bruce's background is in software engineering and strategy. And also with us today, we have Pasquale Boyle, computer engineer and MBA, working at Quatrecasas IT as the consultancy, innovation, and applications director for over 20 years now. And previously, he has long experience on IT consulting companies like PricewaterhouseCoopers and Indra. During this period in Quatrecasas, he has led important transformation programs like the document management implementation, the SAP and CRM implementation, the portal and universal search, document automation, document contract review with artificial intelligence and data analysis. Pretty much he has done all of it. And finally, thank you for having me. I'm Carlos Garcia Gochiaga. I'm the CEO of Lexoft Systems. Lexoft was founded in 2005 and is one of the leading legal tech consultancies in the Spanish-speaking market. And also, we have become, I believe, the main reference in the legal knowledge management space. T3, which is our knowledge management solution, is used worldwide by 3 of the top 10 global firms, as well as many other of the most influential firms in the United States, in the United Kingdom, as well as continental Europe and Latin. So I think we had a little bit of experience on the knowledge management space. We have a little bit of background noise. I don't know if you also hear it. Hopefully it'll go away soon. Okay, so as an introduction to this roundtable, I always, mainly as maybe even as a disclaimer, I want to introduce what do we mean by knowledge management and what do we mean by knowledge management portals and how knowledge management should be organized. So I usually take a little bit of time to talk about what I believe. We should talk in terms of knowledge. What do we mean by knowledge in a law firm? Of course, when we refer to knowledge, we refer to the internal work that our lawyers do, to all of the internal legal documents that our lawyers prepare in all of the matters and cases that they go through the year. But also, when we think about knowledge, we also think about that all of that external research. So all of the use of all of those external databases, I'm thinking, of course, Wolters Kluwer's, Lefebvre, Thomson Reuters, Westlaw, Vilex, all of that, that our lawyers are researching in order to be able to provide that information to the clients. And of course, we also have some additional means that constitute this whole thing called knowledge, which are, all of those agreements that we have, maybe with universities, maybe with of consuls. When we're talking about corporate legal departments, all of that work that external firms are doing for us, and that is building over and over through the years, it constitutes our knowledge space, if you will allow me. So moving forward in this same thought, of course, the next point will be, okay, so what's knowledge management? So what do we mean by knowledge management? Well, really, knowledge management is the ability to reduce the knowledge that we have, the knowledge base that we have within the house, so we can save time. At the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to start each matter not from zero, but we want to start each matter with having 50, 60%, 70%, 80% of the matter already solved, because we want to reduce all of these previous experiences that we have. And the reason for this is very simple. First of all, because we need to do these things in order to save time, to get an advantage on price when we compete against the rest of the legal firms. But also we want to save time in order to be able to give a response much faster to our clients, what we will call the time to market. So how long does it take from one of our customers to ask for some legal advice, and how long does it take for us to actually provide the legal advice? So that time to market, we also want to make it smaller. So that's the reason we want to manage this knowledge. And of course, and I'm finishing now with the introduction, I promise. Of course, the final point is, how do we organize this knowledge? In a perfect world, the holy grail will be that a lawyer could make a question, could ask the system, what do we know about this particular, and then it will get some answers. So for this, what we see in many firms is different strategies, going from knowledge portals, in which we try in a single place to have all of the information, both the internal, the external, all those additional means that we have, so he can query that portal, or he can research that portal. Of course, we've seen newer things, in terms of chatbots. So actually, the professionals can use a chatbot to ask questions to the system, or to say, I'm looking for a contract that has that is talking about SPA, and it's also talking about this jurisdiction, and it has two parties, and suddenly that contract comes up. And of course, the classical way, which is the searches. So you just do kind of a Google search. You say, these key terms. This is what I'm looking for, and bang, there it is. This is the internal information we have. This is some information that we gathered from these external sources, or these other means. At the end, what we want to make sure is that we are able to provide that output in knowledge terms to our lawyers, so they can save time and they could be more productive. So that's my intro, and I promise that I will let you all talk now, and I will shut up for the rest of the session, because you guys are the important fellows here. It's not me, by no means. So let me start by asking a very open question that I know that all of you have a lot of experience on this, and certainly all of you, I will expect at least one answer from each one of you. So let me ask you, what should be the journey from that internal efficiency to that competitive advantage? And I'm thinking in client-facing solution, or better yet, what should be the balance between this internal and external knowledge of these client-facing solutions that you have within your firms? And just to pick whatever the order, Alejandro, could you please start?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Carlos, and I'm super excited to share this table with you all, and share exchange some experiences. So it's fun, because what you just described about knowledge management and about this roadmap, it could look so different for each one of us. Even the definition is a good idea, actually, to start with the definition and what we all understand about knowledge management, because the spectrum of things we can do is so vast that and there is I think nobody gets still the solution to all these challenges. So about this roadmap that you're asking me specifically about, I think that we all started with knowledge management as efficiency. As you said, we try to reuse, basically, knowledge previously produced, documents, models. We started the classical knowledge management, started with precedents, model, checklist, and we started from there. We try to be more practical nowadays, I think, and to have something more immediately usable. So I think we saw a knowledge management system coming into more things like document automation. We started already probably 20 years ago talking about this, but now we are seeing some of the results. Knowledge becomes already a first draft of a document, not just a precedent. Then we saw document review, how we have accelerated the review. And finally, as you mentioned, we have started to see client-facing applications. Why? Because on one side, it's more exciting, I would say. This thing about efficiency, yes, it's a driver, it's interesting, it's something that we have to do, but our eyes illuminates differently when we know that the eyes of the customers is entering into the portal that we are producing or that we make available for them. So I see, just to introduce these things, and I would like to hear from all the others. So I see that knowledge management from something internal, it has become more a competitive advantage and something to be proud and something to show up externally.
Excellent, fantastic answer. Bruce, could we get your input on this one?
Sure, absolutely. And thank you from my side too for having me here today. Really exciting to be part of this. And I agree fully with Alexandro in the sense of this is about taking our knowledge internally, externalizing it. And one of the key points, I agree with him, and I agree with everything, but one of the key things is that it's far more exciting. And it's not just exciting for us in terms of those of us building these solutions, but I think equally exciting for the client-facing lawyers within our organizations who need to participate in this knowledge management, contribute their expertise. I think the reality is, and I'm assuming we'll all agree, you get far greater engagement on initiatives when it touches clients and clients are involved compared to trying to get engagement when we're trying to drive internal efficiencies. Internal efficiencies are, of course, very important, but the partners and others in an organization, in a law firm, will engage far more when it is impacting clients. So I think it's exciting for them too, in addition to us. I think another big trend driving this is just digitalization of services across multiple industries. If we think of everything that we do across other services that we interact with, whether it's travel or financial services or retail shopping, all of these types of things, it's become far more digitalized, the experience. We can interact with the services in a digital way. And I think clients of law firms, of legal service providers are starting to expect that too. They're starting to wanting to interact with us in a way that goes beyond emailing, picking up the phone, having a meeting with a lawyer. They want to be able to access that expertise. And you mentioned earlier, chatbots, those types of solutions. Clients are starting to expect that from all their service providers, including legal. So it's not just an evolution from the efficiency to the externalization. I think it's a response to a changing world in which we live in, and a changing expectation from clients of how they access services, including professional services. So and to Alexandro's point, it's an opportunity to really differentiate one's services, but in response to a need. And really exciting space.
Excellent, fantastic. Pascual, please, we would love to hear your point of view on this one too.
Okay, yeah. First of all, to thank you to everyone, to allow me to share this knowledge, my experience and our experiences in this table. And I think, I can continue with the Bruce reasoning, because the key point is expectations from the client. No? I think this thing has changed, or maybe we had an expectation that was not covered in the last years. No? We have developed a lot of resources, applications, and whatever to help our internal lawyers in the services to their clients. And the thing is that sometimes we push this in this way, in the way of KM or DM portals, opening our resources, our bank of knowledge to them. For us, maybe was low value, but for them is high value, and really is efficiency for everyone. But I think this thing is changing. Today we are feeling that our customers, they are asking for something more. The first of all is that they are big companies, but typically the legal departments are quite isolated from the technology point of view. Then they have a lack of technology for their internal processes, and then they ask us to help in this way and to share and open our technology, our system, our knowledge to them. And then the natural way is to extend our processes, our technology, or our knowledge machine to our customers. And then it's something that is very valuable for them. And really, they are is added value from the legal service perspective. But even some of them, they are ask us to pay to use the software, and then we have to the internal debate. Okay, what I am selling, really, I am selling software, I am selling service. Is a combination of both, no? But the key point is that the need from the customer is a little bit different in this environment of total global digital transformation, and we are an important actor and an important different supplier, more than the only legal advisory.
Excellent. No, fantastic. Thank you to the three of you. I think is a fantastic way to introduce the roundtable.
Can I add one point to the point that's just been made?
Please. Absolutely. That's the reason for a roundtable.
Yeah, absolutely. So one point just to add, and people may already be thinking this, but I think it's good to keep it in mind. If not, is when we externalize legal knowledge, there are, in a way, two types of customers. There's externalizing the knowledge to the legal departments at our clients. You know what Pasquale was talking about there, the legal departments, them needing access to this type of knowledge and the opportunity to externalize it to them. But one can take it even further. Those legal departments have clients, the business people in their organizations, and one can externalize knowledge and provide it to the business people at one's clients. So it's not only, and the solutions can address both needs, but it's also depending on how you create it. It could be legal knowledge, legal expertise in a system for the legal departments, but equally for the business users at these organizations that are our customers.
Excellent. So let me ask you, especially Alejandro, Pasquale. Let me ask you a question. I know that you both have a lot of experience on the following, but can I get your views on project management as a part of the knowledge management toolkits? And I'm thinking in workflows, I'm thinking in templated task lists, and so on. I don't know. Let's start with Pasquale, since earlier we started with Alejandro. Pasquale, do you mind?
Okay, this is a very interesting topic, and legal project management, I think, is the topic, and we are pushing for that in the last years in our organization, and this is a combination of everything. At the end is to help our lawyers to be much more a project manager. This is the first thing, and it means different roles, different tasks, and different value also in our relation with the business. And also related to the previous question, we have to think that in the other side is the customer, and then we have to take it into account in this relationship. And then we have to build this methodology, the resources, I guess, the framework, also the workflows and whatever. And at the end, we have to put the same technology, method, and people to work together in a cross-functional way, really to achieve the same efficiency, good quality, reduce times. And the end is benefit to everyone. But remember, at the final of the process, because this is a lot about processes, then we have the client, and really here we have to work on several, and we have worked in the different ways. We have put IT consultants in complex matters to build specific solutions for specific big matters and complex ones. Then some of the point we can help putting technology and putting people different roles, IT, but also KM engineers, KM people specialized in automating parts and maybe specific models based on document automation. And this toolkit of general resources, but also create the specific ones. At the end is work on the process way, and then create the general method, the general toolkit, as you mentioned, but also to work for specific problems, for specific matters, for specific customers, and this is a question to do it in any matter that really makes sense.
Excellent. And Alejandro, please, could you give us your views on this one?
Yeah, for sure. And just to add, obviously, because I agree with Pascual, and it's very technical, his answer. So just to give some context and how I understand or relate some experiences. I came from a world that we were saying it was all about documents, how to find the document, how to retrieve, talking more specifically those documents. Then I moved to document automation, how to create the first draft of the document. But with a little bit of time that I had expended trying to solve these knowledge management things, we found out that it's not just about documents, it's also the know-how of a law firm. It's around the processes. It's about how we know in very complex matters how to move from zero to Z into this. In a moment where we all have seen what happened, unfortunately, in the past 2 years, where there is a need to collaborate remotely, an increasing turnover of people, if we could, let's say, put our knowledge also in very practical terms into a workflow, we help our people, we help onboarding new people, and we help delegating into new people also some common processes. That's how I have started to introduce knowledge management in very practical terms into a task list, into a workflow. So I imagine a law firm into, like, let's say, 100 processes. If we could put these processes into templates and we said, okay, what we need to do, this kind of service, we need to provide this kind of service, we have to solve this kind of operation. Excellent. So you have our best practice on that operation, you use a template, and so you have the phases. Obviously, then our people will need always to customize and to personalize this to the specific operation. But the trust that we are going to get and the speed up that of the first draft of that process is going, it might be incredible. That's how I intended project management.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
The same only. Yeah.
Thank
yes,
you.
Absolutely. And in that same line of thinking, Bruce, please. And I'm thinking, exactly just following up what Alejandro is saying, that legal culture versus knowledge management, and what are the main issues, and specifically from the technological point of view. Continue with that same line of thought that you're seeing right now within your organizations. I mean, what do you think that we are facing right now in order to achieve this holy grail that Alejandro has painted?
Absolutely, and great points made by the speakers. And I think in terms of the culture, I think it's a fundamental point to achieving success with knowledge management. And I think there are a few key components that one needs to look at to ensure the right culture and the right engagement and the right adoption. And the first one I think one needs to ensure is that there's alignment between the business strategy and the knowledge management strategy. So what is the business trying to achieve? How is it trying to differentiate itself? And that then needs to align with how one does knowledge management. One can't look at them in isolation. Otherwise, there will never be that real commitment to it. And I think some examples which have been drawn out in terms of the discussion already is our strategy to use knowledge management for efficiency and make our organization as efficient as possible? Or are we looking at using it for differentiation in an external facing way? And it could be a combination of the two, but these need to be considered from a business strategy perspective, not knowledge management in isolation. One needs to look at, another component of knowledge management is it's about, as has been described, the documents, the processes, but another component is connecting the right individual. So if I take an organization like Deloitte, where we've got hundreds of thousands of people, knowledge management is, one can capture as much knowledge and process, but there's also an element of connecting the right people at the right time. How do you find the right experts? So is our strategy about connecting experts, or is our strategy about capturing the knowledge in systems, in databases, in intranets? And then I think another component, and these are just some examples of what comes into the strategy, is, are we looking to commercialize our knowledge? Are some of these types of solutions we spoke about earlier, where you externalizing it to clients, is it, which is often the case in the legal industry, is it part of value add that comes as part of the relationship, or is it something that one commercializes? And there are some examples in the industry where externalizing knowledge has been sold as a subscription type service. So what is the business strategy? I think that needs to align and inform the knowledge strategy. I think another key component is commitment from leadership. So leadership showing and committing to the importance of knowledge management and people engaging with it, and recognizing those that participate well. And it could be, does it come into people's reviews, and when people have their annual reviews, how they're contributing to knowledge? Organizations that really commit to knowledge management consider that when reviewing people. Have they contributed? Have they written thought leadership? Have they contributed to knowledge initiatives? But it doesn't only have to be annual reviews and financial consideration, but it's also, everyone likes to be recognized as an expert. So if they're within the knowledge strategy, leadership is recognizing people that are putting themselves forward in the right way as the right experts, that will drive further engagement. So the point I've got there is the connection between leadership and knowledge management. I think that's another key component in the culture, and to drive the right culture. I think another one is ease of adoption, and we can speak about that in a lot more detail, but one needs to make it as easy as possible for people to contribute, whether it's contributing expertise, whether it's accessing an expertise database, whether it's participating and accessing those workflows and those processes. If it's easy to engage with that as part of the work, as Alexandra spoke about, building it into the processes, people will use it. If it's too hard to engage with it, they won't. It'll just become something on the side that everyone, only uses if they're forced to. And I think the last one, which I think is a big challenge in knowledge management, is measuring the impact. So how do you measure the impact of all the knowledge management, all these initiatives? Is it really making a difference, or is it just something that people are being pushed to use? And I think all of those are some of the key components I see in terms of driving a good knowledge culture, or to making knowledge management a success, irrespective of the different flavors of it. Some of the key things to drive the right knowledge culture in an organization.
Let me add up a little bit to what you just said. We had a project not too long ago, about 2-3 years ago, dealing with experts, and one of the biggest problems that we have is that, of course, we created this algorithm to add points to each person. So based on those points, you will become the expert on a particular matter. We ran into a huge problem because when we did it, what happened is that not all the partners became the experts, but many guys that weren't the partners became the experts. And that, gave us quite a bit of trouble back in the day. So we obviously rethought the algorithm, and we balanced it a little bit. But
politics, internal politics.
Rude. It could be very, very rude. Continuing with the roundtable, Alejandro, I know that you're such an expert on this, and I would really like to know what should be the use of artificial intelligence solution in order to capture knowledge. And please, Pascual, I know you guys are doing a lot of things, similar things in Cuatro Casas. I also want you to answer this right after Alejandro gives us his point, if you don't mind.
Sure, with pleasure. Let's say if I can be such an expert, but so what I've seen related to this is that we started with AI and all this password and all this mystic thing around AI. We were using AI as part of due diligence, how to accelerate the due diligence, right? And we find out that it's pretty smart and pretty useful how to extract content from external documents that we receive, and we have to find where are certain clauses, for instance, what's the jurisdiction, etc., etc. We turn off the table and we said, okay, yeah, but we know perfectly, or we have these tools to look into the external documents, and we don't apply this technology into ourselves. If I ask, or if I receive the question, please let me know how many contracts about this type of contracts do we have? I don't know. Let me know what's the best provision, the best clause written about a specific subject. I don't know. So, but the technology is there. So we have been starting to apply these technologies about understanding the clauses, understanding the provisions into knowledge management. So, and we said, okay, I'm reviewing an internal repository of information to recognize, to find the best clauses, the best documents, the best precedents. Then you can do so many things, obviously, and in that case, actually, you are the expert, Carlos, in how we organize this output, because, okay, we are finding, but then we are going to need to say the best clause is very difficult, that the machines are going to say. Maybe we can say which one is the most used, the most used, obviously, statistically speaking. But if that language is really the best or not, then we are going to divide. Not for everybody is this the best clause, maybe by some industries. And so we are going to have to classify, and later on we can discuss also about how to filter all this information, how to apply the taxonomy, because in the best case, now we are facilitating finding the information. Then we are going to have to reuse that information. But that's how I intended the application of artificial intelligence into extracting knowledge from internal repositories.
Thank you. That was great. And Pascual, please, if you let us know what you guys are doing, it'll be great for everybody.
Okay, thank you. Well, a lot of common points with Alejandro, but well, similar histories. Yeah, we started very long time ago. We started with AI piloting and evaluating IBM Watson, Kira due diligence at that time, because we are specialized for due diligence, as Alejandro mentioned, but also all the players, Raven, Luminance, DuxRay, many offer today related to this kind of document review and whatever, and contract review. Well, we do this. We make a lot of effort, because the main topic or the main issue was that all these platforms and solutions were training in English, and then the challenge was to the non-English speakers to retrain or train from scratch our own clauses and our own bank or repository of documents to really do this training. And after that process, we realized that in the same as Alejandro, okay, all this work that we have done several times, collecting models, experiences, examples, at the end, this work was, and this training was useful for our internal improvement to create a closed bank, more complex with different granularities for different specialization, and really to enrich our own knowledge bank, and also to be able to identify and to have tools to do quality control and enrichment, because I am able to detect who is using or who is not using the standard templates or the standard clauses, and we have to analyze. Maybe you are not using, but maybe it's because your own clause is better for this specific kind of matter, and then this is a cycle that really improves our knowledge bank. And this is one point that was a consequence of this big effort using AI. But we implemented AI and this kind of knowledge to do automation in auto-classify the type of document, for instance, in our DMS, because it was a mandatory field that the lawyer has to select between a full list. They have to this. If the list was shorter, then it was very ambiguous and non added value. If the list was very long and detailed, and then nobody asked fulfill right. Then we automatized. It was a non-mandatory field, but the system by default automatically, based on the content and the training, is able to auto-classify. If the lawyer has the good information, he changed it. But if not, the information by default is much more well classified that before apply this kind of automatism. Several things, several AI implementations for knowledge team. Summarization, auto anonymization in an automatic way, but also attended way using AI, and several things. New initiatives we are using to capture, to identify potential knowledge, but we are using tools to help to search, and more intelligent and semantic search platforms to help to the lawyer to access to the right document, the right template or tool for their need. And we are trying to be a little further, really to be able. Our vision is that the system is recommends to the user when is working in a Word document, automatically analyze the text, the context. The application knows who is the user, what is the matter, identify the client, the topic, and then it's able to recommend information that this is in our knowledge base. But maybe the lawyer is not doing the action to access to that clause, to that template, or to be in contact with the expert. And then our vision is to put this in our lab. To present the list of people that are potential experts on this topic, these potential templates to be used, this potential clause similar or not, if it's something specific for their client or for this sector. This is our vision, and is one of the most valuable and risky, because it's not easy, lines of work.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's quite a vision, by the way. It's quite a vision, and it's certainly
it's here. It's something that is touchable. Always, you see, in some ways, we create a lot of value and the wow effect in the lawyer, and sometimes I know it. There's no value for me. It's difficult to find the right point.
Both Pascual and Alejandro, you've been talking about clauses. I know that Bruce, you also have quite an opinion in terms of clauses, because it seems that more and more when we're thinking in knowledge management, we're thinking in actual clauses. And my way of thinking about this is that there are like several questions that have to do, and I would like to get your opinion on this, on how to create, to maintain, and use clauses. What's the implication when you implemented also a document assembly type of solution? What's the implication of having the right clauses and so on? I would love to hear your point of view on this one, Bruce.
Sure, sure. And as you say, building on and what's just been spoken about with AI, because I think it's very, very connected and interrelated. And as we all know, document automation is a technology that's increasingly being used in the industry. It's been around for quite a while. I'm still quite often surprised how it's not used that much further across different organizations, even though the technology itself has been around for so long. And I've heard people say, it's like you wouldn't think of accountants doing their work without Excel. But here we've got lawyers doing work without document automation, which is such a core technology for the efficiency, the standardization, and it's relatively straightforward to implement. And as we know, historically, document automation, and predominantly still now, document automation is document or template based rather than clause based. So it's about taking a standard template document that the lawyers, of course, need to create, and then building in the rules, building in the variables into the document automation to be able to then generate documents. And law firms will typically have tens, if not hundreds, of different templates that are automated on a template level rather than a clause level. But that brings a few challenges. The one is if you've got common clauses across each of those templates, and those need to change for any reasons, regulatory reasons, or you're just updating your internal knowledge, one has to then go through all those templates and update it. It's not updated in one place necessarily. It also requires you to have a larger number of templates to cater for the different permutations or the different types of deals that one needs to generate documents for in such a context. And what we're starting to see, and I'm thinking primarily in some of the new leading contract lifecycle management solutions, what we're starting to see is clause level document automation, where one needs to then, rather than looking at document templates, one focuses on the clauses and common clauses across the different documents, and how one then creates the clause library. And then when one needs to generate documents for various purposes, it brings together the different clauses in a structured way to, of course, create the document that then flows through into the usual processes. So the huge benefits for that. One is if you've got a certain clause, you only have to update it in one place. It's even further standardization, because when you're doing things on a document level, you can still get away with having the same clause slightly different in each document. This drives further standardization. It also drives greater optionality, because if you're doing things on a clause level rather than a document level, the number of different documents you can generate are that much higher. You're not constrained to the different templates. You can have rules to pull together the clauses in different ways. So there's some very significant benefits. I think one of the challenges, or the biggest challenge, and this ties into the AI point, it's around identifying what are those correct clauses. What are the standard clauses that you should build into the library for generating those documents? And as I think Pasquale said, one can use AI to pull out the most common clauses, but because it's the most common clause doesn't necessarily mean it's the best clause to be using. It's the one that's been used the most number of times. But it is a good starting point to take all your historic documents, analyze them, see which are the most common clauses that have been used. That's a good starting point to give you that initial base of which clauses to look at. But then one does then need to apply some legal expertise and some judgment to say, okay, even though it's the most common one, is it the best one? And one then needs to build up that clause library. So there's a fair amount of work that needs to go into it. But once one has done that, one, of course, needs to keep updating it, but one then has this very flexible library you can use for clause-based document automation. So one can do that. One can also adopt a hybrid approach. One doesn't have to go fully clause-based. It's not either one or the other, document-based or clause-based. You can have documents and then be pulling in various clauses. So it's a process you can go through. If you're starting with a document-based automation and you want to evolve to more clause-based, you can start by having, for example, boilerplate clauses, standardizing those, pulling those into your documents. And then as you go further, moving to more and more of a clause-based approach, of course, aided with AI, as has been discussed in the previous question.
Excellent. Let me add just a really quick thing in terms of document assembly and clauses. Another very interesting point that I've seen a few times also is the necessity, sometimes because of regulatory reasons, of actually keeping track of what clauses were you using way back then. So also to have the audit and the versions of your clauses. So at any given point, you could say, okay, if I was to automate this document 3 years ago, this would have been the result. Now this is the result. Sometimes you need to know exactly, or you need to keep track of how you're changing those clauses within your document assembly products too. So this is something. I mean, this is something certainly we're going to be seeing a bunch of work done in the near future. But I've been asking all the questions now, so I open up the floor now for you guys to ask yourselves questions or to ask whatever you want, and I will set up here for a while.
And if I can start with that, obviously. But first of all, I agree completely about the going back to the clauses. Something that you said, Bruce, about the maintenance. The problem that I've seen, at least with document automation, is that we are very excited at the beginning. We create the templates, but then maintenance is another story, and maintenance of clauses is much easier, let's say. So that's a very good point. And going back to Carlos, so we make him work also here. He needs to work. It's not on vacation. So going back to what I mentioned, Carlos, about, okay, we have extracted, we have identified this information. I know you have been publishing recently some articles about how to organize in legal taxonomies this information. Can you tell us in a little bit about the best practices?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. No. Okay, so I mean, of course, I mean, we do a lot of knowledge management projects for a lot of different firms in many different geographies, and I usually tell them, okay, what do you want to get as an output? Because depending on the output that you want to get, we can think of how to design those taxonomies. Because obviously the taxonomies, which are the raw materials that we're going to use to classify documents or experiences or groups of documents, we are going to use it to classify them, but also we're going to use it to filter your results. So, you know, I usually think into different approaches in terms of how to use these knowledge searches that we do across firms, and for me there are like two scenarios that the layers use. The first one is the more Google approach, or better than Google, let me use Amazon approach, which is, okay, I'm going to search for some key words that I'm looking for, maybe, I don't know, contract, an SPA or whatever. And of course, you know, if I type that in any, you know, a smart knowledge search right now, I'm going to get 2 million results. I'm going to get a bunch of results. So what the lawyer is going to do after that is going to apply the filters that it has available to them. So those filters are actually the taxonomies. And what do we mean by filters or by taxonomies? So it's going to be able to say, okay, I want this contract, I want this SPA, but I want to make sure that it's jurisdiction, European Union, Germany, Munich. And also I want to make sure that the law that is being applied is also has to do with Chinese law, because actually it's an SPA in between Germany and China. And also I want to make sure that this particular document that I'm looking for talks about taxes, indirect taxes, and VAT. So it's applying filters, and those filters are actually the taxonomies that we use in the earliest stages. So when we see that, or when we expect that our lawyers are going to do this type of searches, so very Amazon-like, and then apply those filters, the way that we want to build our taxonomies are in great level of depth and precision. So we want to have many levels of depth and really high amount of precision when creating our taxonomies. Now, there is another way that we see in these days that the lawyers are searching for information, which is the completely opposite way, which is instead of searching for a particular key term, what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate our topics, the legal topics that I have within the firm. So going back to the previous example, maybe what I want to know is, what do we know in my firm about taxes, especially about indirect taxes, and especially about VAT? And then I get, 500 results. And out of those 500 results, I can start doing searches upon those to try to shrink down my results to I don't know, to something that I can manage, like 10, 15 results that I can read over. So in the case that our lawyers are going to be searching like that, what I want is to keep my taxonomies, with very few amount of levels of depth, because they're going to be navigating. And if I make him navigate really way too deep, they're going to get lost. They're going to get almost no documents. They're going to get no options to then find the documents. So what we're finding today is that when we are designing these knowledge systems for these very large firms, is that there's always an argument on how they're going to be using the system. Because if you look at how Westlaw does it, it's the Amazon approach. But if you look at the document management system, how people use document management is the other approach, is the navigation approach. I find the client, I find the matter, I find the folder, and then I look into that. So actually, the lawyer in their head, they have both of those strategies, and they're using, once of the time they're using one, the other times they're using the other one. So actually, we have to think in all of this before we actually define our taxonomies and how you do it. I don't know if that answers your question, or is a little bit more of a big old mess.
Absolutely. But and I guess the thing is that you have to make those systems to work together, right? Because the two approaches work together, and it's something very. So many times we are asked for our people social media features. People are getting used to tagging people, to hashtag, to many things that we in knowledge management sometimes we don't manage very consumer friendly kind of services. So very good answer.
Well, hashtags really, I mean, that the hashtags were not invented by social media. Well, they were invented in knowledge management as key terms. I mean, it's been our key terms forever. And now they stole it and they call it hashtags. And they say, no, we want hashtags. I say, it's key terms. It's been there for 20 years.
It's cooler. It's cool now.
Yeah, maybe we need to rechange all of the names.
Our marketing.
We will look more modern and more innovative. But we only have 5 minutes left. So I'm just going to ask you, a very, very short question. And I want your answer. And I'm only going to give you a minute for this, by the way. So what would you ask in terms of knowledge management if you will have one wish that you could say, okay, make this appear out of nothing? What will be your wish in terms of knowledge management? What would you like to have in terms of knowledge management?
Who are you starting with?
Bruce, go for it. You're smiling a lot.
Okay. I think the thing that really excites me, and the thing that I would love to have, and we're focusing on at Deloitte, and we want to achieve further, is this externalization of knowledge management, externalization of knowledge, creating client-facing solutions. And the reason that excites me, and the reason I really, we want to achieve more than that, more than we've already done, and we've already done a fair amount, is because I think it's changing the future of services, the future of how we work. It's not just making an existing model more efficient, but it's really transforming legal service delivery. It's the way services are already starting to be and will be consumed in the future. And so the really exciting thing for me is more client-facing solutions to address knowledge needs. And I think part of that, which is an extension of it, is helping more with access to justice. So people who can't afford legal services necessarily, I think this externalization of knowledge makes legal services that much more affordable and accessible. So I think that's another thing that I would like to see as part of that.
Thank you. Pascual, you're next with your wishes.
Wow. Well, it's a very complex question. Yeah. Well, I think really, yeah. No. I think that my wish is more regarding the most complex one is mindset. I think the most complex issue regarding knowledge management is in people. It's in our mind. People has to be aware of about the necessity to collaborate and really to contribute knowledge. If you have a law firm or a company that really this is a reality, knowledge management is easy. The rest to just put technology and common sense. But the first one is the key point. We have to ensure that our companies, that are collective companies, have this same mindset. And this is complicated. I think we are quite proud about our situation, but it's very difficult. Always we have people that are very pro knowledge, very with this mindset, and other ones that it's difficult. You have to be behind, and well, it's so complicated. And I think it's my main wish.
Excellent, excellent. And Alejandro, you closing.
Okay, so I wish the both things from Bruce and Pascual. I wish the
You
client
can only
facing.
have one. You can only have one.
I wish the mindset plus I would like contextual knowledge management. So I have something in mind if we are talking about wishes. So I think that the good knowledge management has to be contextual, has to come to us when we need it. There is no worse situation than when someone tells me after I finish the document, after I click send, have you seen, have you checked? I hate that. So I need a contextual, like a plugin or something like that. We work in Word all the time. I would love knowledge management to be more integrated. All these things that we have been working, they have to come to me while I'm drafting. Have you checked this? Have you seen this? Because you are writing this, because you are citing this information, check here. That's my wish.
Excellent,
I
excellent.
can
Well,
sell.
it's
I can sell you your wish.
You have it.
I will show you.
I take a flight right away.
So thank you so much. I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure. I had a blast being part of this roundtable. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Pascual.
Thank you.
Alejandro. Big thank you to Global Legal Tech Hub for organizing this roundtable. Thank you, my friends. And it's been an absolute pleasure. And bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks
I
a
think
lot,
we all-
everyone.
Bye.